Hi, it's book review time, and we are gonna talk about Brandon Bay's book called Presence. It's the Hungarian version that I'm holding. This woman has written many books, but I only read this one, and I really liked it. It's a spiritual book on experiencing God, practicing the presence of God, but it's a non-Christian author. I found this book at a spiritual bookstore. I'm gonna talk about the story later. And I was a bit skeptical of this when I started to read, and then I realized that, oh, I experienced God just the same way. And it was such a reassurance, like, oh yeah, I know that kind of God. So I had a lot of confirmation when I was reading it, and there are a lot of practices in it that you can do at home on your own, meditation practices. So it's a bit like spiritual and this flowery language of spiritual writers, but not too much. There is this little bit of cheesiness to it, but very little. Like, it's quite practical and approachable, and it doesn't have the mindset of any religions. So it's kind of like a great thing to read. Like, you don't have to filter through the traditions of a certain religion. I really enjoy that. So if you want greater freedom and ease in your relationship with God, you definitely must read it. Brandon Bay's Presence. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you how I found this book. Coming from a Christian background, it's not very common for me to read non-Christian books, or it used to be. So my little sister wrote a book called The Vision, and I really wanted to sell it through spiritual book chains, which actually have happened, and non-Christians are more happy about that book than Christians, which is quite something I was longing for. But there was a particular spiritual book chain that I really wanted to sell our books in, and they were selling everything from Bible to metaphysics book to tarot cards, like everything. And I went in, and they refused to sell our books because they only sell their own books that are published by them. Anyways, I was just shopping around, and I saw this book with the title Presence. And by that time I was like spending all my time practicing the presence of God and teaching about it. So this is my life, you know, this is my profession. So I was like, oh, it will be very different what I want to read from what I want to read, but it might be something that I won't completely agree with, but I would love to see someone else's approach, just to shake my little mindset. So I was a bit skeptical. Like I was starting reading with a distance, and I was shocked. It was one of the greatest and most positive shocks of my life. It will sound arrogant to you, but I'm gonna tell you, the Hungarian Christian book market is so poor on books on the presence of God that it rarely happens to me that I read a book and I feel like the person who wrote the book experiences God's presence more than I do. And it's not because I'm very high, it's because most people in the Christian realm don't really practice the presence of God. And if you do it for 2 weeks, you are on the top of it. So I'm just scratching the surface, but sadly and unfortunately, I still feel like that most of the people don't even go that deep into the presence of God as I do, even though I know that I'm only like starting to discover it. So it was a great feeling that, oh, this woman knows the presence of God like way more than I do. And it felt so good to sense that. And I was so ready to learn because I was like desperate to learn about the presence of God, but I couldn't find that much material on it when I was searching for it, especially not in Hungarian. I'm from Hungary, in case you're wondering. And it doesn't this book doesn't have the concept of any of the religions. It has a name for the divine workings, the divine intervention. And the name of it is Grace or Providence throughout the whole book. It makes it super enjoyable. Like, we have so many names for God. Grace is a good name for him, I think. So I loved it. There are some guided meditations that you can actually do. And there are some very deep and profound thoughts. I had so much fun reading it. I'm gonna read to you a little bit. I hope that I won't get copyright strikes for it. Just a little bit, just a little quote. I have fallen in love with this state, the state of Grace's easiness. Every time I feel like taking effort, I become suspicious. I know that Grace is whole and perfect and doesn't need anything, doesn't require anything, my help and my effort the least. Consequently, the only one who ever wanted to fight is nothing but my ego. And every time this urge to strive comes up in me, I stand up and recognize that the ego wants to take over and realize that any effort I would do for my purpose would immediately stop the easy flow of grace. I've translated it from the Hungarian version. So it is much better articulated in the original. The other thought I really liked, leave everything to grace. If you have a role to play, you will do it effortlessly and easily. These are the things that God has been teaching me throughout the years. And I was like so alone with that, except for a few friends. I was like, God is leading me to those things, and no one was there cheering like, oh, you're a right path. And of course you have to go on your own path, but sometimes I was like really looking for some reassurance and I didn't get any. And this book was that kind of reassurance, like, oh yeah, I'm on the right path. So it was amazing to see that someone spends their life practicing the presence and teaching others to do the same, and she's successful in it and she loves it and all of it, because I feel like I'm called to it in some sense, like to practice the presence and to live it and involve people into it. And it was great to see that, yeah, someone has like decades of experience in that, not just a few years as I have. So yeah, it was a great kind of testimony for me. If you're a Christian, I'm gonna tell you that you don't have to filter that book that much. Actually, a Christian book has to be filtered way more than this one. If you're a non-Christian, the only thing I need to tell you is that Christianity has this subculture where people believe that everything that is non-Christian is dangerous. And for them, I have to tell that they won't die if they read a book of a non-Christian author. If you're a Christian, I'm gonna be sure that you're gonna like it. Of course, there is a set of words, there is a language that is a bit far away from Christianity, but you're gonna be used to it like within a few pages, and then you will really enjoy that fresh perspective on things that that only a non-Christian can have. So yeah, if you want a greater easiness and lightness and freedom in your relationship with God, I would definitely recommend you to read Brandon Bay's Presence. God bless you.